So what exactly is vaping anyway? Vaping can be described as a cigarette replacement. It is now being used worldwide by people just like you, in order to help them stop smoking for good. Vaping is a great alternative which has better health benefits and is also a lot cheaper. Let's face it, many of us have had many attempts at quitting. It's a hard thing to do, being that cigarette addiction is both a physical and psychological addiction. The reason that smoking is so addictive is because it hooks you in many different ways. First, there is the nicotine and chemical addiction, arguably the hardest part to go without. But then you also have the hand movements, the triggers and habits that go along with the actual act of smoking. This is where vaping can help. You're literally having the difficulty by using vaping as a cessation tool. If you're vaping with nicotine, that is one less thing to worry about. Then there is the hand movements and keeping your hands occupied, check that off the list too. All of a sudden, you're only really having to deal with the habitual aspects of smoking as well as the other horrible chemicals that you're addicted to. Don't get me wrong, this is still incredibly hard to do, but vaping lessens your dependence. Vaping, as its name implies, is completely different than smoking. While it may share a similar physical action, be able to assist in helping you squash that cigarette dependence, they could not be more different. Important: vaping is not smoking. The draw is different, the taste is different, and the feeling when you vape versus smoke is completely different. Don't fool yourself into thinking that it is going to be just like smoking, because it won't. Once you remove that expectation, you will have a much better chance of success. By its very definition, vaping is the act of vaporizing something and inhaling in order to mimic the act of smoking. It works by using heat to vaporize a liquid into very tiny particles, vapor, which are then inhaled and exhaled. How exactly does it work? To create vapor, you need three basic things: the liquid that is to be vaporized, a heat source, and an atomization environment, something that applies heat to the liquid in a way that it can create vapor efficiently. The reason we need the third thing, the atomization environment, is more for efficiency and providing the ability to control the vaporization, so that we can use it for purpose. If you were to just hit a bowl full of liquid with a blowtorch, there really is no way to contain that vapor and use it in any useful way, but essentially that is exactly what is happening, just in a more controlled way. Let's take a look at each requirement in a little more detail. The heat source, mod/battery/vaporizer. In a simple world, a heat source could be anything, just like my above example. A blowtorch will do the job, but that's not exactly efficient and definitely wouldn't fit in your pocket. In these modern times, technology moves very quickly, and early on vapers decided that batteries would be the most efficient way to provide the power to heat our devices. Times change and technology advances, so there is always going to be a new battery, a more advanced circuit board or new mod on the market that boasts the most features, but essentially, most vapers will have a battery providing the power for their equipment. These batteries come in a variety of different shapes, sizes, and power output, all dependent on what you are trying to get out of your vaping experience. For example, a new vapor may want something small and discreet, which will have quite a low power output, whereas a more experienced vapor may be wanting a lot of vapor, as well as be able to control many configurable properties that are mostly only available on more powerful devices. These tend to also be quite large. The liquid, e-liquid. The liquid that we use for vaping is known as e-liquid or e-juice. Often flavored with fruit or dessert or even candy flavors, it is usually a blend of vegetable glycerin, propylene glycol, of course flavoring, and nicotine if you use it. Different companies will use slightly different variations and mixtures, but that is generally all that you'll find in an e-liquid, nothing more, nothing less. The atomizer, atomization environment. Just like batteries and mods, atomizers also come in a variety of different styles and configurations. As I explained earlier, vapor is produced when your e-liquid is introduced to heat, and this is usually done via a wicking mechanism. Typically, cotton wick will be soaked in e-liquid, which then passes through a heating element, your coil, which heats up and creates the desired vapor. It does not matter which type you have, everything I just mentioned happens within the atomizer. Bringing everything together. So now that I've described each important step in a little detail, let's put it all together. The first step is to fill your device's atomizer with e-liquid. Depending on which type you have, you might drip e-liquid into it. You may fill up the tank. You may even fill up another bottle that sits inside of your setup. Whichever you do, it's important to get those wicks soaked with the e-liquid first. Once that is done, you'll fire your device, It'll probably be a button push, but could also be an automatic trigger that operates with air pressure. When your device fires, power runs from your battery to the coil in the atomizer, warming it up, much like a heating element. When this coil gets to an appropriate temperature, it will begin to vaporize the e-liquid that is in contact with it, and create vapor. So that's the basics of it all. Hopefully you've stayed with me all the way through this section. There is a hell of a lot more information that I'd like to add to this, but since this is just a small introduction to what vaping is, I'm going to leave it here and create some more advanced, in-depth articles later on.